Hey y'all, day 149 of spiritual healthcare. It is good to see everybody. I'm gonna turn my chat on here because otherwise y'all aren't gonna see anything. Hold on, there we go, I think. Okay, so anyway, welcome. Here we go, like day 149. It's crazy. We've made it this far. I hope everybody is having an awesome week as it starts to warm up, as things finally start to open up here in Canada, or at least most of Canada. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's good to see everybody. It's been a crazy busy week. Lots of things that have come up. Lots of really good news. Lots of just crazy, just crazy stuff going on. And we've got some awesome topics today, including Spiritism and Houdini, and some talk about spirit communication and stuff like that. There's lots on the table this morning. Good morning to Dan and Shadow and Sally. Shadow, nice to see you. It's been a little while. I know you guys catch up on YouTube and stuff, but it's good to see you here. I hope you guys are having an amazing week. We've it's been nuts here. We have gotten a lot done. Lots of projects kind of rolling as live shows start to come back. Is what I'm hoping to do, is get back into the throw of live again, which is encouraging. So good morning to everybody logging in. It's nice to see you. Nice to see all of you. I hope you guys had a really great time. Today we're going to be talking about Spiritism. We're going to be talking about spirit communication. Why skeptics can be like they are. All of the, we've all had those people. Good morning to Cass, how are you? Morning to Marge, nice to see you. I hope you guys have had good weather this week. I hope you've been, having fun kicking around. The US is far more open than Canada is. And I have allergies this morning, so forgive me. We have like a ridiculous amount of pollen here right now. Like, it's so bad because it's been so dry. We haven't had all that much rain. So all the trees are freaking out and just like chucking as much pollen into the air as possible. It's crazy. So a few announcements before we get into everything else. I posted a little while ago that I'm now on Cameo, of all things. So you guys can book me for almost anything. If you want to send somebody a happy birthday, if you want to, brighten somebody's day, maybe have them toss a bit of advice or something like that, you guys can now book me through Cameo, which is kind of fun. I never really expected, to be on there, but there we go. So it's a really, really cool little platform where you can kind of book people, everybody from like Ice-T to like literally anyone. It's crazy the amount of individuals on there. Kaz is saying they're expecting 111 degrees Fahrenheit by Sunday. Wow, that is crazy. We are not 111 yet. We had a couple of days though, I tell you, where we were definitely in the upper 80s. It was warm. That's crazy. So anyway, on Cameo, and it's there for you guys when you feel like it. There's also some brand new interviews that are up on entityseeker.ca. I did some shows with Brandon Reines and Elizabeth Chamberlain on their show Paranormal Phenomenon, which was really, really fun. And then I just did their show again recently here on this subject of Spiritism. And I wanted to talk about it because I think there's a shift from the old thinking of Spiritism into the current vibe of paranormal research and the current science behind paranormal research as well. Good morning, everybody that's logging in. Good morning to Shauna, everybody. Hey guys, it's nice to see all of you. If you're new, post where you're from in the comments because it's always so fun to see where everybody's from. But there's sort of a translation, and I think a lot of the ghost hunting shows and stuff like that kind of fall somewhere in the middle between like Spiritism and sort of the new wave of where things are going, but they kind of linger back in the late 1800s methods of doing things, which I always find very interesting because it's not where parapsychology is now, but it seems to be the most theatrical. So for those who don't know what Spiritism is, Spiritism, it was sort of this time period that, that went on in like the 1800s, where, and into a little bit into the 1900s as well, where people were really, really big on the idea of contacting ghosts and spirits and things like that, and seances and this kind of thing. So a lot of the things that you guys see on shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and stuff like that, a lot of that is Spiritism. It's theater, and it's theater that came from a very specific time period in history. So when we think about things like Spiritism, we usually don't think about stuff like ghost boxes and things like that. But that's kind of the idea behind it, right? Where there's this sort of theatrical element where everybody comes and sits down and watches, whether it be table tipping or a medium going into this sort of seance, and there's like this dramatic ending. And stuff like that. And the Society of Psychical Research was actually developed to debunk the frauds, because it became such a huge thing over the years, and people were starting to scam people out of money and stuff like that, that they formed the Society of Psychical Research to kind of separate the fakes from the real stuff, because of course you had people that were out there studying the real stuff and were trying to make headway in the field of parapsychology. So it was a really interesting time, and when I got thinking about this after the interview, I realized just how much of that movement is now in so many of the sort of the ghost hunting TV shows, where it really is the evolution of Spiritism. And the paranormal world kind of did this split between the academics and the people who were studying the real stuff, and then sort of the ghost hunting entertainment side, which was, the grandiose mediums of the time who kind of went, instead of having sittings, they were having television shows, which is really, really cool. So I think that's where this split kind of happened. And you see a lot of sort of, I guess, evolutions of the tools and whatnot that they would use in seances and these sort of theatrical sittings that they now use on a lot of the TV shows. So everything from like creating voices to spirit boxes to Ovilus and all these different forms of equipment, which are very showy, right? Because if you don't have show for television, then you're kind of screwed because your audience can't see anything. And sometimes academia isn't always the best for being exciting, which is just true. But I think it's, it's important to understand, I think, what we're looking at. So a number of questions that have come in via email over the last little while. One of them has had to do with, I've had one about the dictionary device, which is basically the Ovilus, as well as spirit boxes. I've had that question come up now a couple of times. So I thought I would just kind of lump my answer into one answer. So whenever we get into things like spirit boxes and stuff like that, and for those of you guys listening who don't know what that is, it was this tool that was designed, and the Ovilus kind of works in a similar way, but it's a little bit different. So the spirit box basically runs through AM, FM frequencies and finds random words, and people associate these random words with answers to questions, and they take it kind of as this sort of set in stone, like the spirits using these frequencies to find answers to questions and stuff like that. Where with the Ovilus, it's a little bit different. It's basically using electromagnetic fields to almost like source code words to frequencies and things like that. And people is the same thing. It's like it's taking frequencies, and the box itself is doing the association with these different words, because it's like a dictionary basically in a box. So anyway, regardless, the problem is with all of these devices is the fact that, number one, they're never ever going to stand up in a paper that is going to prove anything. Okay, it just won't. And there is kind of an issue with most experiments, and we've talked about this before in regards to other ones, but it definitely applies to this one as well. Is that we can't get away from the observer effect, right? So whenever we are using these boxes or whatever, I personally do not believe they are contacting anything supernatural. I think they are completely, they're finding random words. But the problem is that when something like this is finding random words, the observer effect kicks in. So if you're turning around and focused on getting an answer related to a question that you just asked, your state of expectation is now in regards to getting some sort of related answer. So not only are you influencing it with your own observation, but you're also influencing it with a filter that you're now seeing these answers through, right? So your brain is now going to start associating with that word with something that's going on in the conversation, even though the word might just be, just sort of random. So it can be a really, really tricky thing to deal with. As I say, I don't use them mainly for those two reasons. Those two reasons for me, it's like, I think it's too tainted. And I don't think there's any real scientific basis to either of them. Usually when we bring tools into an investigation, for myself personally, everything that I've got is in order to take a baseline of the environment. So instead of me using these tools to kind of look for spirits, what I'm looking for is what the environment is doing without spirits or without paranormal phenomena, without activity. So that when something does happen, then there's a fluctuation in those readings, right? So what I'm looking for, say for example, if I'm using something called a tri-field meter is a form of electromagnetic field meter, but it also reads things like static electricity and stuff like that. What it does is it takes a sample of the environment, okay? So it takes a sample of the environment when there's nothing going on, and it makes this obnoxious buzzing noise. And it is really annoying, but it makes this obnoxious buzzing noise. And this whine. And then eventually the whine kind of quits, and the needle kind of just rests. It starts to peg. And every time something moves through the field around it, or disrupts the electromagnetic field around it, the needle spikes. So every piece of equipment that I'm using to detect what it is the environment is doing without activity, so that when something does pass through or something does happen, then you can start to build yourself kind of a graph as to, okay, you know what, here's the conditions when something did happen, here's what it was when nothing was happening, and work it that way. Same thing with cameras, everything is running all the time when there's nothing going on, just as much as there is when there's something going on. So equipment is mainly used for that, whether it be whether you're dealing with electromagnetics, whether you're dealing with static, whether you're dealing with light, anything like that. You kind of want to know what your baseline is. So with these, part of my issue with them as spirit boxes and things like that is, again, it's like there's nothing there to give you any sort of baseline. It's literally, the equipment is not really taking the environment into consideration, because it's kind of all in, everything is happening within the box, right? The box is finding digital patterns. The box is, going through radio waves and pulling words out. And here's the other part of the problem, is that when you look at the frequencies in which EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, is recorded within, radio frequencies have nothing to do with it. So if you're looking for EVP through something like a spirit box, you're not going to find it, because it is so far off the basis of where it is on that frequency scale. It's not looking in those frequencies. Here you've got AM and FM, right? It's like sitting here, and the EVP frequencies might be down here, right? And it's only looking within these small amounts of frequencies. So it's missing everything. And EVPs don't come in through these frequencies. So there's issues that I have with them, just on a really fundamental basis. But I wanted to kind of cover them with everyone, because I've been getting a lot of questions about those. So anyway, it blends into the subject that I kind of wanted to talk about, which was Harry Houdini, because I just did an interview regarding Harry Houdini, and I thought this was so interesting because I had to go back and do some deep dive into into his role in Spiritism, because he was on the surface, I will say this initially, on the surface, Harry Houdini was a militant skeptic to a degree. So when he brought out a book in 1924 called A Magician Among Spirits, and he said, he was really interested in it. He himself used to hold these sort of fake seances for fun, for entertainment, because he's an entertainer. That's what he did. And he would create these fake seances and stuff like that. And what was interesting was that over the years, he ended up losing a number of friends. And when he lost his friends, he had made a pact with some of these people and said, look, like, if you come back and visit me, then I'm going to know that there's an afterlife. And I think a lot of people have done this, right? Like, they've made these, like, agreements with their buddies. But anyway, his friends ended up, like, passing away for real. And he ended up basically sitting in this, I guess, like, bitter state, expecting his friends to come back to him. And whatever, and of course not being very open about it because he doesn't really believe it anyway. And so needless to say, under those conditions, nothing ever happened for him, right? And he ended up taking this as absolute concrete evidence that every possible thing that was paranormal was fake. It was fake, that was it. Anybody who was studying it, anybody who was engaging in channeling or mediumships and anything like that, fake. It's all fake. This was his opinion. And so he went on a rampage after this of trying to debunk anybody who was a medium, anybody who was claiming to be medium, just went on a rampage. And not just like, like heartily trying to debunk them and making a career out of it, but like angrily trying to debunk them and fight them and whatever. So, he ended up, even in the book, devoting this entire chapter to ectoplasm, which was a big photography aspect of the old Victorian seances, where he concentrated on this one medium known as Eva C. And he was basically saying this is a what they would call almost like a Hindu needle trick, where it back in the day what they would do is that people would swallow or pretend to swallow 200 needles on like a length of thread and then like regurgitate all the needles. It was an illusionist trick. And then, so he said the ectoplasm is working in a very similar way. He said these people are illusionists and some of them are really good. Now, interestingly enough, during the same year that the book came out, he published a sort of a short version exposing a medium by the name of Mina Crandon, and she had actually accepted a challenge that came out in the Scientific American magazine, where they said, we are going to give you $2,500 if you can show us the fact that you are the real deal. We'll pay you $2,500. And she said, yeah, I can do that. So anyway, Houdini wanted to be in on this sitting because he said, no, I'm gonna get you. And he was convinced by the end of the sitting, of course, that she was full of it. She was totally fake. And he ended up saying, okay, no. If you are, I know that you're using a ruler to ring the bells, because they used to have these little boxes with bells in them that the medium wasn't supposed to be able to touch, but the bell would ring. And he was like, oh no, you're using your foot and a ruler to ring this bell. And I mean, he had this all worked out. But what was interesting about this was that instead of kind of retreating after, apparent humiliation, the medium actually came back at him and said, actually, you set this up. You set me up. And this wasn't true. This isn't true. You're lying and you're setting up mediums to fail because you're rigging this stuff. So it completely flipped. It went completely the other way. And it was really interesting. So for those of you who are just tuning in, I have allergies today, so because our pollen is insane here in Edmonton, so there it is. So for those of you guys who are familiar with the Sherlock Holmes series, Arthur Conan Doyle, of course, was the author, and he and Houdini, believe it or not, were like best friends for the most part. And Arthur Conan Doyle was way on the other end of the spectrum when it came to all of this stuff. He was absolutely a believer in the paranormal. He followed it quite closely. He was really interested. And he was always saying, you know what, we have to unmask these fake mediums. We have to do that. But he said at the same time, he's like, if we start losing our perspective with the paranormal, then he said, and this was such a dig, but I think it's really true. He said, when you talk to somebody who has completely lost perspective about the paranormal and has completely ruled it all as fake, you were talking to an ignorant man. And I thought that just gives me goosebumps. That gives me goosebumps, even just sitting here. And he's, at some point, this divide just broke the two of them apart, because he was like, you can't be, you can't be this sheltered about the paranormal and stuff like that. Houdini maintained right till the end of his days. He said, nope. He was like, everything I do is real. It's magic. It's, I know what I'm doing, so on and so forth. But there came one statement that I thought was so profound, and I want to get into it a little bit, is that at one point, according to Arthur Conan Doyle, Houdini told him that, and this is a quote, a voice which was independent of his own reason or judgment told him what to do and how to do it so that he could do it safely. And Arthur Conan Doyle just about jumped out of his chair, because he was like, okay, wait a minute. What are you talking about? What are you saying here? And immediately Houdini was like, no, it's not paranormal or anything. It's just, this is what I do. But so here's the cool part about this. And this is what I think many skeptics and stuff like that miss. I'll take the story apart a little bit. I think when people, and a lot of skeptics I think fall into this category, is that they have first of all, they have a very strict set of expectations as to what the paranormal is supposed to look like. So in Houdini's case, right, here he is in this position where the definition for him of paranormal was somebody coming back from the dead and basically waving their arms and saying, see, there's an afterlife, and hey, I'm your friend that just passed away, and hey, what's up? So that's his definition of the paranormal. And when you're sitting in a place of discontent, or you're sitting in a place of expectation of, this isn't here yet, I don't see him, my friend was supposed to come back, he hasn't come back, I don't see him around, do you see him around? This is all fake. You can almost hear the dialogue in Houdini's head, right? As he's trying to sort through this in his mind. And the more you do that, the more resistance you put into the mix. And as we know, the more resistance you put in, the more your state of expectation is, I can't see it, I'm observing what isn't yielding to me what I want, then the odds of you experiencing it are almost zero, right? So you have to be able to let go. You have to be able to be open and not be able to, jam what this is going to look like into this tiny little box, which is what he was doing. And of course, when you're looking for something to happen and you're only looking at the fact that it hasn't manifested, what happens is nothing, right? What happens is nothing. And then people take it as proof that, see, when really what's happening is that you're just being yielded to your current vibration, your current state of expectation. And so here Houdini was like waiting for his friends to come back, and it wasn't happening. Well, yeah, it was kind of no wonder. And of course he's getting more angry about this. And then he goes on a binge to try to prove the fact that this is all fake. Well, yet again, you've got a situation where the universe will always yield to you exactly what you want, right? What you're expecting, the observer effect. And the observer effect is the idea that, when you observe something, the very act of your observation changes the outcome. So if you're coming into it going, I don't believe any of this isn't real, well, guess what? It's probably not going to be very, nothing's going to manifest for you. Shadow is saying, we can't see love, but love is real. Yeah, and, and it's funny because people, immediately will come back, like a skeptic would come back to that and say, well, it's a chemical reaction in your brain, and it's so on and so forth. And it's like, well, yeah, everything has a basis in science somewhere, right? But it still is energy at the end of the day. So, that's always my argument with stuff like that, because you'll often hear these skeptics come back to you and say, oh no, that's a chemical reaction, or oh no, it's this or it's that. Well, yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't have the meaning and the impact. That scientific part of it does not take away the meaning and the impact. This is how we experience, our physical senses experience it. And our physical body experiences it. And this is what happens in order to get the experience. And the paranormal is very similar. Of course, there's explanations in there as to how some of this stuff manifests. Of course it does. But at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that something is going on. It's happening. It is happening. And it doesn't degrade the experience of the people that are experiencing it. And I think for people like Houdini, he would come at that statement in a very similar way. He would argue the fact that there was, there's a scientific explanation. Well, yeah, of course there is, but it is energy. It's still energy. It is still a powerful experience. It is still, something that is all encompassing. It drives the universe. I mean, it just drives the universe. It doesn't make it less than. So it was really interesting to me as he kind of went along in his journey, how this started to show up for him. And I think because he was in such a narrow box when it came to his perspective and belief about it, that when he got that intuition, when he got that guidance, when he got that, hey, you know what, do this, not that, do that, not this, when he was in the flow doing his work, he dismissed it as whatever he was dismissing it as. He was writing off that guidance and intuition. And what's so interesting, I think, is that when you look back through history, and I mean, I can relate to this myself, being an artist and a performer, is that guidance is so real. And if you read back on even the greats like Mozart, people like Michelangelo, people like the greats of our time, the composers, the painters, but even athletes. You look at athletes, anybody that is passionate about what they do, they will describe to you the same thing, which is that they get in the flow. They describe it as the flow or the zone. Sometimes you'll hear it with athletes. I was in the zone, and what's so interesting about this is that flow, when you really get connected with it, is really a state of receiving. And so many people don't, I think, equate it with that, because they always want to equate what you're doing with you. But there's an element to it that's not you. It has to be you to some degree, because of course, you work and you practice and you get better at what you're doing. And of course there's that element. But there's an element with all art, and I know I get into this myself, whether I'm doing fire or sketching or whatever I'm doing, even when I'm doing shows and stuff like that, I'm in the zone, I'm in the flow, and there is a little something that takes over. And I think Jan Van Zandt said it the best when she said, "This stuff comes through you, not to you." And when stuff manifests, it comes through you, not to you. And I thought it was probably one of the best descriptions of this I've ever heard. My partner is a composer, and they just an artist and in so many ways. But he's always said that every time he sits down to compose music, he said, it's not me. It's not me. It comes through me. But he's like, and he'll never take credit for it. It's so funny. But, and he's always like, it's not me. This is something else. This is something else. I listen. I've learned how to listen, not do. And when I learn how to listen and not do, then the stuff flows, and then I can translate it. It's so interesting. But I think here Houdini the entire time, was doing this. He had this in practice, and he was so good at it. I mean, you don't become one of the greatest escape artists and magicians in the world, or an illusionist in the world, just on your own. You don't. And so here he was probably one of the best channelers at all of this and figuring this out and getting in the flow and experiencing all of this. And he had no clue. He had no clue. And I think so many of our skeptics of today and things like that will fall into the same category. It's like, here they are, you know, pretty good at a lot, you know, a lot of things. You know, everybody's got gifts and talents and all that kind of stuff that they've worked on. And that space is really where this stuff comes from. If any of you get a chance to see the movie Soul, to see the Disney movie Soul, I highly recommend it, because they actually touch on this, you know, in a great way. And it's such a brilliant film. The writers absolutely nailed it, and they attributed passion and being in the flow and whatnot. Of course, the main character in Soul, if you guys have seen it, is a jazz composer, and he ends up he ends up having this near-death experience. And during the near-death experience, when he dies, he ends up sort of going back to source and helping this other inner being who is just about to manifest into the physical world. Helps them to figure out what their passion is and what their passion is going to be when they get here. It's a brilliant movie. It's absolutely brilliant. But they have this great way of visualizing that zone when you're connected with who you really are, when you're, you know, when you're in the flow and you've got no resistance and you're in your passion. And in the movie, and I thought this was so good, when you become completely disconnected from who you are, then you end up sort of turning into this they depict it kind of as this monster, but it's really like your energy, your spirit is just disconnected from its source, right? And it becomes very unintelligible. It starts to be you know, your ego starts to take over. It becomes, you know, you become miserable and all of that kind of thing. And until you find that flow again, until you find your passion, then you can't really get back in touch with who you are in that flow. And it's really, really good. So when I was talking about Houdini during this last interview, that's one of the things I was thinking about. I thought, you know, it's so funny because you know, here he was able to connect in really well with who he really is and his inner being. And yet, because he had put everything into this box, expecting the communication to come this way only, he missed it. He missed it. So it was, yeah, very interesting. Later on, years later after Houdini died, this is kind of funny, they decided that they were going to hold a seance because Houdini was supposed to come back on a specific day. It was very like resurrection material, but he's supposed to come back on this certain day. And they held this seance. And what was so interesting was that he didn't come back. He didn't come back. He didn't show up when he was supposed to. And it was really interesting because the people that I think held the seance really didn't learn from the lessons that he had gone through, which is that it's not about forcing something. It's about state of allowing. And they kind of missed it again. Shauna was asking, I used to have the flow when I was a teenager. I used to write like crazy. How can I get that back again? I think that's such a great question. I think so many people have this issue. Sometimes I think, first of all, I think we have to reevaluate as we get older. Is that still my thing? I think that's the first question we have to ask. Is that still my thing? Is writing still a thing? Do I really want to do this? Because just because you did it when you were younger doesn't necessarily mean that it's your thing now. It might have evolved from that. So I think that's the first question to ask is this still me? Is this still me? And the only way that you're really going to be able to answer that question for yourself is to start writing. And it doesn't really matter what it is. I think I often get clients and things like that when they're feeling down or whatever to start writing a rampage of appreciation about something, about something that they really love. And sometimes that in and of itself can get you back into the flow of connection enough that the inspiration starts to show up. That might not be what you want to write about ultimately, but it starts to get you back into the flow. I'm like you. I do a lot of writing as well. I love writing. I love it. Not only nonfiction stuff, but fiction stuff that I just never publish. But it's, yeah, so I totally get that. Shadow is saying, yeah, she's saying meditation, disconnect and sit with the project with her candles lit. Yeah. But I would question, first of all, is this still really my thing? Has it become something else? Because I think sometimes the mistake that people make is that they go back into something, or they try to recapture something that they have now either moved through or that wants to go into a new place. But that's what I would do. I would start writing about something that makes you really passionate. See where you can go with it. See what happens. And see how you're feeling as you go. See what ideas come. Leave yourself open to the fact that, hey, wait a minute, this might be an article, or you know what, I still love writing, but man, would this ever be cool? Or, man, my writing is, I'm seeing all these pictures in my head, as I'm writing, man, that would be a beautiful picture. Maybe this turns into photography. So I would start there with it, and just see where you get to, and keep us posted as well as to what you come up with. I find if I'm stumped at writing, that can be one of the best things to do, because I think when I've gotten roadblocks before, I usually find a roadblock or a writer's block or anything like that is because it's trying to take me in a direction and I'm not going. Like, it's so funny, because when I was writing Teaching the Living, when I was writing my book, I have the copy out here. No, I don't. When I was writing my book, I would be doing really good. I'd be writing. And then all of a sudden I'd get to this one chapter, which I knew the material. That wasn't my problem. But I'd get stuck. And I would sit there and I would look at it and I'd be like, I don't understand why I can't formulate a sentence around something I've lectured on for 20 years. And then I would realize that it was because the chapters were out of order. And I would take the chapters and I'd be like, oh no, because this chapter actually goes 3 chapters back, and I would move it. And all of a sudden it would flow. Bam, it would just show up. And I'd be like, oh, okay, that's what it was. So I find sometimes that when we get a creative block in that way, it's almost like it's designed to say, hold up, this is not yet. Either not yet, it's not in the right space, or it's trying to go somewhere where you're not allowing it to go. And so that's really, really interesting. Something to keep in mind anyway, because I know that myself. Shadow is saying, I'm not a great writer, but I've got great ideas. Yeah, and she could send her some articles. Oh, what a great idea, Shadow. Oh my gosh. I love that. But yeah, so no, I would highly recommend that. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. I really find it takes on a flow of its own. If I'm doing a fiction story, and this is kind of cool too. If I'm doing a fiction story, I find that I let the characters write the story, which seems kind of crazy, because it's like, well, your characters are supposed to get to an end, and blah, blah, blah. I never know the end of the book when I start writing it. I have no clue. Like, it is a mystery to me right until the end of the damn book. Which is so funny. And I end up getting into that flow. Flow is the best way to put it. Into that flow, and the scenes, the characters, they have their own dialogue. They'll speak on their own. And I write down all of it as I go. And as this is showing up over and over. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. Kat says when you're writing, you're not driving the car, follow the characters. Exactly. That is the best description of it I think I've ever heard. Absolutely. You are not the one in the driver's seat. And I think that right there is a description of almost every art form that you can possibly imagine. We're really not in that driver's seat. And as soon as we are able to take our hands off the wheel a little bit with this stuff, oh my God, does it show up. It is one of the coolest things in the world. Like, I can go, I can, even with my fire stuff, it's so funny because I could be rehearsing a trick for, you know, a couple of days, 2-3 days. And, you know, I'm getting maybe somewhere with it, but not to where I want to be with it. And I can rehearse, and then I leave it for a week and come back. And guess what? First try. Bam. First try. So writing, I think, is kind of the same way. You know, it's kind of the same way where this stuff, you know, whether it be any sort of art form, is taking your hands off the wheel, which is something Houdini just he couldn't get his hands around on a mental level, but yet he knew it. He knew how to do it, but he didn't have the awareness. He was so tight into these expectations that, you know, that he missed, I think, an area of study that would have blown his mind. And now here we are, you know, years down the road with the advancements in parapsychology that we have, knowing that this is how it works, knowing that the act of observation, the act of getting into the flow, that all of it is key for these things to be happening. We know this now. And, you know, I think he would be, and probably is, very, very fascinated and looking back on his experience going, that's what happened. That's what happened. I guarantee you. So that being said, everybody, let me find our affirmations because we got to do some of those before we go. It's like so important to get into our week on the right step and whatnot. I spent the last little while shooting some fire stuff, so I'm gonna post some more fire photos actually in the next little while. My friends Stephen Carr and Ian Hunter are some of the most brilliant photographers I think I've ever worked with. I will post the photos. Thank you, Shadow. She says she loves to do fire pics. I'm gonna post some more because they knocked it out of the park. I did a video recently as a gift, and the photos that were taken in and around this video are just absolutely talk about people being in the flow. These two photographers, let me tell you, incredible. So anyway, everybody who does not have allergies right now, take a deep breath. Everybody take a deep breath. Here we go. Let's do some affirmations, guys. Shake it out. Shake it out. Take a deep breath. Shake it out. I'm a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly flowing into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love. I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me, even in a sea of uncertainty. And at this moment, all is well. I'm able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate all the beauty and abundance of the life around me. I'm able to embrace love while letting go of fear. And I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. Everybody take a breath. Shake out any residual stuff that's left. Any residual stuff that's left. And you guys, I hope you guys have an amazing week. As I say, more interviews. There's going to be more stuff, including my Houdini interview. Should be out very, very soon. Actually, I think it's out now. I think it just got posted recently. I think it may be on entityseeker.ca already. It's on Spiritism anyway. I hope you guys are I hope you guys are get a chance to catch it. Shadow's asking, are you familiar with earthing? If so, we can talk about it. Yeah, I love earthing, man. I love it. Like going out in the grass, bare feet. Yeah, like, and that connection. Seriously, there's nothing like it. Nature is so part of us, and if we don't connect with it, yeah, it's like we miss out. So thank you guys so much. Thank you guys. I hope you guys have an amazing week. As I say, I'm now on Cameo. If anyone wants to book a birthday greeting or some uplifting advice or anything like that, and send it to somebody that needs it, that you think needs it. Yeah, you can find me on Cameo and book me on there, and you can send it to other people and stuff. It's so cool. It's the neatest little platform. It's so awesome. Also, my IMDb page is finally up. It's going to be continually updated now in the next week or so with more photos and stuff. Like, it's taken me like 18 years to get my crap together for that. So anyway, it's up. It's not completely filled in, but it's up. So anyway, thank you all. If you want more classes, and whatnot, entityseeker.ca or youtube.com/entityseeker. Marge is saying loves the music in my videos too. Thank you. That is completely Michael's doing. I take no credit for that. That is completely Michael's doing. As I say, he's a brilliant composer. Like, just knocks it out of the park, and he's got a great voice, and he makes the whole thing light up. So I can take no credit for the music at all. Anyway, thank you all, and I will talk to you guys next week. Have fun, go enjoy the beautiful weather, and I will see you all later. Bye, guys.